That wasn't my fault. No.
Thank you.
How are you, Steve? I'm great. Well. If somebody did not turn their phone off after all, that's about it.
I have proof.
You have what?
I have proof.
Oh. You know, so they don't like you said.
Oh.
Stop likes me better than you won't say nothing.
That makes you feel good.
I would say, yeah.
You would.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say yes.
Steve is the only one. Well, I'm sorry how come he's the core, but the rest of you are. You laughed.
How could you not?
He's got. it. All right.
All right. It is 7 o'clock and I will call the regular city council meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We will start with roll call.
Councilmember Mockus.
Present.
Councilmember Cummings.
Present.
Councilmember Ansich. And Councilmember Wenzel is absent.
Yes, and Miles let me know he would not be able to be here today. He is on vacation with his family. So is there a motion to excuse?
I'll make a motion to excuse now.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to excuse Councilmember Wenzel. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So passed. Approval of the agenda.
council's pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda and add the Emergency Services Consulting International delivery of opinions analysis under new business.
I'll second.
It's been a motion to add item D to the agenda with the ESCI, what was it called? The ESCI full name? Oh, got it. The ESCI report and delivery options analysis as item D. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? So passed. It is added. Was that the approval of the agenda as amended? Do we have to do a separate motion to approve as amended? So, with the amended motion, what is the council's pleasure?
I make-
Moved and seconded to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So passed. Starting off this evening, we have Hope Fire Chief Matt Miller, Aberdeen interim chief. Okay, I didn't want to say the wrong one, Dave Golding, and then Hope Finance Director Corey Schmidt with us tonight to discuss the Central Grace Harbor Fire Authority and possibilities of Cosmopolis being involved. So the floor is yours.
Awesome, perfect. I'll let my team sit down then apparently. They're gonna let me take it. All right, thank you everybody for having us, Matt Miller, Oakland Fire Chief and Cosmopolis resident. So glad to be here. I'm here tonight, we are here tonight to answer any questions and give you, the rest of the council, a brief rundown of the RFA that Aberdeen and Copeland have been working on for 3 years now. 2018, real quick, brief history here. I'll go as quickly as I can. The Hopeland Fire Chief retired. The city of Hopeland contracted with Aberdeen for then Chief Tom Hubbard and Assistant Chief Rich Malizia. With that, they suggested that Aberdeen and Hopeland get together, come up with the ESCI study. Year and a half later-ish, that study came back with, it didn't necessarily tell us what to do. It gave us suggestions on what avenues we could take. One of those avenues was how we can consolidate or not consolidate. There was a numerous suggestions in there. Stay the same, don't change anything and just keep going. You're not gonna gain anything by that. Municipal fire district, contract for services between cities, or the regional fire authority, which is a relatively new thing to the state. And I say relatively new in the last 10 years or so. That was the choice that we went with on that. Inside of that was also some options, but no direction on a funding mechanism. Originally, the two cities created a planning committee with city council members, Dave Golding and myself and Corey. Were on that planning committee, and it was decided through that committee to go with what was called the fire benefit charge, which was a large mathematical equation for a structure in a city to equal a number of what that building would be charged. We pursued that avenue. In the end, we took it to the first vote. It failed by 14 votes total between the two cities. So we thought, close, let's go back out. It failed by a little bit more after that. And one of the biggest things that we heard that were negatives was the cost. It was a lot of money. Inside that extra money that we were looking at was to help up the staffing. We found through the ESCI study that Aberdeen and Hopeland combined were lacking 10+ personnel to what it should be. So we were trying to help cover some of that gap, not all of it. So that's why we were asking for that fire benefit charge. Again, that failed. So we kind of sat back and licked our wounds for a little bit and thought, okay, what are we going to do? Because we still need to, it's still a good thing. There's lots of efficiencies and operational benefits by us combining. And with that, had some brief conversations with Mayor Pauley, and then started meeting with your public safety committee and talking and getting Cosmopolis's input on this and whether you guys would be interested or not. We would love to have you. I think together, the three cities already, we're so close let's be honest, we're Central Grace Harbor, and that's the name of the RFA, is we named it Central Grace Harbor Regional Fire Authority. We are the center of the county. We're so close and so many things operate together. Obviously, cities share attorneys and share other services such as water and sewer, and why not just start trying to combine some more of these together? Dave Golding and myself came up with numerous operational plans and response plans that covered Aberdeen and Hoquiam. We have since started to work with some plans that included Cosmopolis. We are taking into account and crossing our fingers that the city of Cosmopolis still has a fire department and is going to be recruiting some more volunteers. With that, our plan is to bolster more volunteers and open up your borders to the cities of Aberdeen and Hoquiam, and try to pull in more volunteers that I will say will help city of Cosy because we're here, but it's the RFA. It would no longer be the Cosmopolis Fire Department, the Hoquiam Fire Department, or the Aberdeen Fire Department. It is the Central Grace Harbor Regional Fire Authority, and we provide all the same functions to all three cities, trying to be more efficient, better use of our money, better use of our staff, better use of our equipment, and all of that. And we're trying to provide a better service to our customers, who are the citizens of all three cities. A prime example of that, and we talked about this here a while ago. You guys had a call over at Cosmos here 2 weeks ago-ish. I can't say what your previous response would have been with the previous volunteer staff that you had. Obviously today we know where we are, but I ran some numbers, and in the first 12 minutes, you had a battalion chief and an engine coming from Aberdeen. When they realized what they had, they upgraded the call. Within the first half hour-ish, you had myself, a chief officer. You had 2 more engines, one from Aberdeen, one from Hoquiam, and a second chief came in right behind me, Dave. And then when we did expanded into a mutual aid, we requested a brush truck and a tender so that in case it got further away, we had Grace Harbor Fire District 2 Central Park come. And then we ended up with a medic unit who was out running aid calls during it, and they finally broke free and came over. So I think I added up to 18 personnel, 2 chiefs, a battalion chief, 3 engines, a brush rig, a tender, and a medic unit on scene in less than an hour. That's a pretty good response when you consider what we have here. Luckily, it didn't go very far. And I'll tell you, anything that involves a mill, a pulp mill, a plywood mill, whatever you have, the biggest resource you have is the employees. And they were excellent and really helped us go through all that. But it was time consuming, and we were all there for a couple hours, and in the end, it went well. So I'm just here to, trying to maybe garner some support from you guys. I understand you're doing the ESCI study, which I don't disagree with. It's great. However, with our planning committee, what we've started working with is kind of a timeline of things. And I'm not, as far as you guys, I'm not sure if the study and the vote and everything would line up appropriately. That's your guys' decision, not mine. I'm just sharing that. Again, we would love to have you. We've talked. I've been working with Nick, who is one of your prospective volunteer helpers, whatever you want to call Nick today. And started looking at some things to help how things are now. I've offered my services, Chief Golding's offered his, to assist the city of Cosmopolis however we can. In the meantime, again, hoping to encourage volunteers to come in and build the department back up to where it was. And our long-term plan, this department would be get more manpower, more people. It is a little bit too far south for the Southside Fire Station to cover, but there's options out there for us. But what we love to see is a robust volunteer system here that we can man and have more people here more of the time, but still have everybody else over that way coming to help. So with that, I'll ask Dave or Corey if they have anything they want to throw in before we go to questions.
Well, I can just touch on the resources that can come to bear for an incident for you guys. When you look at NFPA, National Fire Protection Standards, they state that you should have 15 firefighters on scene of a moderate risk event, so a structure fire, a house fire. And with our plan, you guys would get that. within a combination of what we have responding from Aberdeen and Hoquiam and what we could hopefully build within Cosmopolis as well. So we'll have enough hands on task to be able to actually mitigate that incident in a much more efficient and safe manner. Structure fires, as you know, are kind of our bread and butter, what we train the most for. It can be very labor intensive, a lot of time sensitive tasks that need to be done. So using that type of number and being able to throw that type of resource and bodies at it really takes down the loss that's there. So just a more robust response as an example.
Yeah, I'll just say, a big finance piece, obviously the sticker shock of having or being part of the RFA has been the biggest issue. But what on the city side, the cities Aberdeen, Hoquiam, and I'm sure Causey is there too, from what I understand, is that the cities are absorbing a lot of the costs in relation to fire, not necessarily the ambulance side, but on relation to the fire side. And so a lot of the city's general funds have been absorbing the costs and the citizens haven't been paying the full cost of what it actually costs to run a fire department. So when you join, and looking at creating the RFA, that's where the sticker shock comes from, is that the actual cost of running the fire department or the regional fire authority is being put on the citizens. And so that's, you're seeing what it actually costs. The cities aren't absorbing the costs anymore. With the ESCI study, it was very valuable because it did tell us our options that we had. However, it doesn't tell you what's gonna cost less. It's not gonna tell you what you should or shouldn't do. It's just gonna lay out the different options, which are pretty much, like Matt said, stay as is, create a fire department, do a municipality agreement, which like you have with Aberdeen, or create your own fire district, or create your own regional fire authority. So they're just gonna give you the options that are available. And that's really all the study is gonna do. I don't know if it was really that valuable for when we did it. I think it was information that we already knew, and it just validated the information that we already knew. So it put it in a formal report. But anyways, just if you have any questions related to the finance piece, I can answer, or if you have questions after this, please call me. My information is on the City of Hoquiam website. I can answer anyone's calls or questions, citizens, council members.
So Corey Day's like to sit way back there. I want to get up here.
Yeah.
So, very brief. I tried to sum it up as quickly as I could because I get yelled at for talking too much. So I tried to bring it up and just get you guys all up to speed and give you the general information. If there's any questions, we're here to answer. Again, like Corey said, anybody can call us at any time. Our information's out there. Anybody has any questions now?
Well, one thing I did want to mention, of course, the council knows that council voted to bring Causey into the planning committee. And myself, Councilmember Cummings and Councilmember Wenzel have been as part of that planning process. And we've said numerous times, we're not beholden to be a part of the RFA at this point. We're part of the planning, but nothing is saying, yes, we are going to be as part of this in the planning. But as we start to approach the deadlines, if something is going to move forward to voters, we do need to make that decision if we are going to be moving forward or not. And I'm going to be planning a kind of a public hearing workshop here from the public and have a little more dialogue. That's going to be coming up in a couple weeks, but it is something that we need to make a decision soon, both for our planning purposes and for the Central Grace Harbor RFA as in general. That if we're on the committee and planning for a 3-city department and then something changed, that's a lot of replanning that needs to happen. So, but council, I mean, if there's any questions now, we'll have some more opportunity, but now is the time.
The deadline for September 8th.
The public hearing I'm planning for is September 7th. It just so happens that's the first Wednesday. That's our normal kind of meeting time, but
So again, we would love to have Cosmopolis join in, make it more of a bigger group effort. Like Corey said, there is a little bit of a sticker shock. I live in Cosmopolis and I don't pay anything that Aberdeen or Hoquiam pay. as far as fire and EMS services, and I understand that. That's one of the nice things of living in Causey. However, living in Causey, I also would prefer to have the best service that could be given to me. And I understand not everybody believes that, and everybody's entitled to their feelings and thoughts. So I'm just here to encourage all of you to please jump on board and again, ask any questions. I know Julie and I, Darren and I email back and forth all the time, between the three of us, anytime there's a question that pops up. So we're more than willing. I will come over at any time and talk to anybody, obviously, at any point. I don't live very far away, like I said, so. Anyway, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And again, if any questions, please ask. Thank you.
And just now's a good time as any that September 7th, 7 PM standard city council time, that first Wednesday in September is when I'd like to have a kind of a public hearing. So we have a little more time to hear from the public, get some questions and hear from the council and do a little workshop with prospective action to say yes or no if we're going to be going forward. And I mean, offer the invitation to any of you to be there. I would love to see you there to answer some questions if they're there, but if that works with your schedules. So
Mayor, would we have an idea of what the cost would be at that time, or is that too soon? For the citizens? If we would go forward with that.
the general costs,
We do have some generalized costs.
Yeah.
Obviously, it hasn't been
Right,
narrowed down to
yeah,
everyone for you.
Yeah.
You want me to cover or do you got? it?
I think right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so pretty much, so your regular, so there's a portion of your property taxes that is the regular property tax is actually taken away from the city and moved over to the RFA. So your regular property tax would not increase. Just an FYI. However, with that said, there would be an EMS levy, which is 50 cents per 1,000. So on I did a $200,000 home, it would be $100 a year increase on your property taxes. And where you would see the big increase would be your ambulance utility fee. So it would be monthly, not yearly on your salary or on your property taxes. So it wouldn't be one big hit, it would just be a monthly increase. And that would be increased to, if we left staffing as is and didn't increase per what our study said, it would be $26.54 a month.
compared,
So,
For reference, currently Hoquiam residents are paying 19, just under $20. And Aberdeen residents are,
2730-ish.
So with that average 50 cents per 1,000 EMS levy, Aberdeen is not. So Aberdeen is an increase on the levy side. Again, that is a huge part due to the fact that the cities have been absorbing the costs of what it actually costs to run.
And currently in Causey, we're charging our residents $675 a month for that, so it would be somewhat of an increase
And are you guys?
for
currently-
residential.
City absorbing a lot of expenses into the fire department, or previously.
Well, because we're volunteer, we don't have labor costs basically, but we're paying for all the maintenance and, fees and everything else. There is some cost
Yeah.
for the truck, roughly
The truck is
with
still
the
ours.
truck payments, our budget's been averaging around 250,000 a year,
so
just to
would-
give you an idea.
So, I mean, just a rough, that would be a $20 a month increase. We would have
On a lot of
increased, yeah, an increased response and into the future and things, but that is a big chunk all at once to consider.
if you would decide to go with the number of firefighters that they suggest. Is
So-
that going to be substantial?
So if I did a very, very rough estimate
Yeah,
just during our
sure,
meeting the
yeah.
other day, and it jumped to $30 and some odd cents per month. And then for an additional 3 staff members, and then for 6, which is what the study recommended at a minimum, it was like $32 and some odd cents.
but we realized after we took our first vote in Aberdeen Hoquiam, that was probably the biggest
Cost increase.
the cost increase was the biggest sticking point for the citizens, and we took that to heart, so we tried to revamp. We kept the operational and response mechanism of it, but we pulled out the people that they said we should have. Aberdeen and Hokum are both understaffed, but it is what it is.
In total in total with the, for leaving staffing as is, in total, the increase per year for Causing would be around $334.
That's where that figure came in. I had seen.
I
it,
believe some,
but-
Daryl had a question. Were you raising your hand or? Yeah, I don't know if I'm able to ask a question.
Is it okay?
Is the audience able to ask a question? At this point?
Yeah.
Has there been, do we know what the Washington State Rating Bureau is rating for city of Cosmopolis? And have they studied to determine whether the addition of the RFA would make a positive impact on the residents' fire insurance rating?
No, the last survey from the Washington State Survey and Rating Bureau was done about a year and a half prior to this point. I sent it to Nick, and I haven't looked at it I know our scores stayed the same. 19?
You
I think.
you recall what that number was.
No, that's right.
While Nick's looking it up, I will speak for Hokum and Aberdeen. So in the talks of the RFA communication stuff, we came up with an increased, or what we called an enhanced response, which merged Aberdeen and Hokum units together more. And that bumped us up quite a bit. So, and I say quite a bit, we're still at a class 5. We were pushing class 6, but it almost now we're almost down to class 4. So it made a significant increase for us for the inspector, auditor, whatever you call them, that came to the station. I think all 3 of us got hit at the same time about a year and a half ago. So it would, in theory, it would lower it, which in turn lowers your fire insurance rating. 6. So we are currently just over a 4. We're at 0.39 over to be a 4, so we're technically a 5, and you guys are at 6. Part of what they look at is your response capabilities and what you provide during a response. Like Dave was saying, 15 people on scene within X amount of minutes. That would help. With that, couple of the services would be a fire marshal service. So currently are you still? Are you
No, I'm interim fire chief, but Bill does that.
Bill's doing that,
So
so
there's a lot of times he doesn't have the training where, in fact, we've got an incident right now, gonna contact one of you about.
right, so that the RFA would, part of the contracts that we agreed with the cities is we would turn around and offer the fire marshal services, so pre-fire planning, planning review, generalized fire marshal services, that would be, building inspections. All that, probably what you're referring to, that would be a service offered back to the city.
So would there be like a fee on a building permit then for those services? Or how does that work?
No.
Okay.
It would just be, part of what the RFA plan has built into it is some this for that, so to speak.
Okay,
So, for example, Corey will be taking care of finances in the meantime. In turn, we'll be providing those type of services back to the city for those in-kind type of services.
gotcha.
So you guys would just fall within that. You would just get those services.
Okay.
One thing that we did talk about, as far as in the plan, what service would Quasi be given
Mhm.
back, and really it would be you helping manage the volunteer
you.
program as far as all the state reporting requirements.
Gotcha.
Because you guys are familiar with that, we're not. That would be a big learning curve for us, so we would be working with you. on
Gotcha.
that.
Okay.
So.
So the cities are still intertwined, and just, I guess, a quick thing is, the way it's sitting right now, the commissioners or the board, the governing board. If the RFA were to be approved, we would then have to go out for a vote for commissioners, and there'd be one representative citizen voted from Hokum to represent Aberdeen and Cosmopolis, and then within that, each city would appoint a non-voting current sitting city council person to be on that board as well. So there would be 3 board voting members and 3 non-members to represent the city and their likes and dislikes and needs and wants to the board. So, and you'd still get people like me and Dave showing up to your council meeting to give your reports when needed. So The cities, it would be separate from the cities, but still tied with the cities.
Can you throw in code enforcement too?
Yeah.
Fire.
Building inspections,
Yeah, sure.
how about landscaping?
Yeah.
So, good questions, though, by the way, I appreciate it, it's.
Any other questions from the council at this time? We got a couple weeks to kind of filter out and add in. I mean, it's a lot of information and we can get some more information, I mean, some numbers. It's a lot to look at. But I mean, it would be a big question to consider. Yes. No, go right ahead.
I was just wondering, okay, so our taxes would go up. Right? Okay, my concern is, okay, so Cosmo would take a big chunk of the tax burden, right? What if they
Proportionately.
close like warehouse did, then what happens to our taxes?
So I think I remember, I think you're maybe referring to like when Weyerhaeuser was here and then they left and
Yeah.
our taxes all went up because we had to make up that difference.
6 years.
I'm gonna leave that to the planning.
Not really.
Yeah.
They still paid property.
Honestly,
taxes.
it's still, it stays.
That didn't change anything.
And realistically, I mean, if they close, somebody still owns the property and is paying property taxes. It's not like B and O taxes or those types of things. So the property taxes, no matter if they were running or not, property is property.
So does-
Weyerhaeuser still continued to pay those property taxes even after the mill shut down. So property taxes wouldn't have changed among the citizens. We didn't do anything different in that aspect.
A lot of things changed with the city at that time that.
But that had nothing to do with property tax.
Then. Check, to see what his would have gone up this last time. And he was on. And he said they would have gone up to $365 a year. But that doesn't mean every year, it's not a.
No, that was.
Changes every single.
It's gonna be based off of the assessed value.
Right, so every.
So if
year.
that changes, you're gonna see will increase there, but there's also the lid, and Corey can speak to this better than I can, but there's only that 1% lid increase that can happen, so.
So, and it's not 1% of your house, so. This is where I say philosophy and I lose everybody, so. Say, the city or the RFA is requesting to get $10,000 a year from the 50-cent levy. I mean, we're gonna get more than that, but still, if it's $10,000, we can only ask, so as a municipality, you can only ask for a 1% increase of your salary, and it's 1% as to what you received the prior year. So, and then that's allocated out to everybody. Typically, assessed values go up, and then property taxes actually decrease a little bit. So it honestly depends on the assessed value of the homes. So it doesn't, assessed values go up, it doesn't necessarily mean that your property taxes are gonna go up. So it's honestly, it's all based on the assessed values of the homes, but there should not be a significant increase year after year after year.
What about
It should be all the same.
And that was one of the sticking points with the fire benefit charge, but it didn't rely on your assessed evaluation. You could have something worth $1 million+. Let me rephrase that. This building could have been assessed at $1 million, and it could have been, the RFA benefit charge would have only based it off the square footage, and it's based off of what type of firefighting resources are needed to fight that fire in that square footage.
Pretty much the bigger the building.
The bigger the building, the more it's cost, and that was the problem with some people, and I'm gonna pick on you because I know where you live. Have a large house with a big shop and that price grew as your house grows. And that was a very big sticking point for the citizens, and we learned our lessons. Like I said, we took the lift. We learned that people didn't like that. So we shifted back to a much lower scale, got rid of the extra staff that we were trying to bring in. And based it off of the assessed value, which brought it way down here.
And it's people understand their property, the benefit charge, people didn't understand how to calculate. And so the property tax, by doing it through your regular property tax, the EMS levy and the ambulance utility fee, people can kind of have an idea as to how to understand how to calculate that, so they feel a little bit more comfortable with the understand how, because they were able to understand the funding mechanism versus the environmental.
And I mean, I encourage anybody who's here or anybody who's listening on Zoom, I mean, put questions together, submit them. We'll have this kind of public hearing in the workshop and we can ask these questions. It is a lot to just kind of explain in one brief presentation, but again, I thank you. Thank all three of you for coming in and it'll be an ongoing discussion, but
Perfect, thank you.
thank you. And you guys can hang out if you'd like. Yeah, exactly. We will go to public comments on agenda items. If the public does have any comments, feel free to take the time, just introduce yourself, and we ask you to try to keep it under 3 minutes.
Are those for only agenda items?
At this time, yes. There's another public comment period at the end of the meeting, so. Not seeing anybody jump up. We didn't have any written.
No, I have
Okay.
0.
Moving on, consent agenda, claims vouchers and the July meeting minutes. What is the council's pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Right.
Any opposed? So passed. Committee reports. We will start with Finance Subcommittee.
We had a meeting and Julie's gonna touch on that in her report more.
Public Works.
We also had a meeting, and I can't remember what it was about now, but it'll come to me. Darren, do you remember? It's been a while. I was in Iowa, so I wasn't here. We had that, well, we met with Kathy, and then after that,
Charges.
yeah, that was it. What?
The comp time for the. guys.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Just those
There
two
was
things,
something
wasn't
else.
it?
No, there
The
was something else.
And then the hiring of,
And hire.
yeah, hiring somebody.
We were gonna look at rates or something.
Oh.
Bulk water
that was
rates.
the-
Yes.
Mhm.
And I'll touch
So
on that in my report because we discussed that also in the
Perfect.
finance committee meeting.
That was a group effort, but that was our meeting. Thanks.
It is public work. We gotta work together. How about public safety?
Do you wanna talk about that?
I can do, well, I can discuss RFA discussions.
Yes.
As far as the Central Grace Harbor RFA Planning Committee, again, myself, Councilmember Cummings, Councilmember Wenzel, and the rest of the committee and Chief Miller and everybody, we met at the fire station last week before?
Last Thursday.
Last Thursday. Had a good discussion, went through the planning process as well as part of the planning committee, working on what the actual plan would look like as it goes to voters. So we are an active part of that, going over what kind of rates would be most amenable to people in the entire 3-city region. And looking over command structure and a little bit of everything. It's been an ongoing process. It's a lot, but again, those discussions are going and we have a very active voice in that. How about Parks, Rec and Cemetery?
No meeting, no report.
And that's it for that. City official reports. Welcome back. All you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll touch on some fire department stuff real quick. We now have our first 2 official volunteers officially on board. So they've gone through all the process. So we're happy to have them. One of them is Nick Valley, so Nick's kind of our go-to guy right now. He's pretty valuable to us, so we really appreciate him. We're actively going through some other paperwork with some other recruits and trying to get them up to speed. And so it takes time, but we're one step at a time. We're going to get there.
Do we want to confirm?
We can,
We will need to confirm with the Public Safety Committee.
Okay.
Once we have Miles back, so
Yeah.
we'll actually do an official confirmation of both of you, but everything's taken care of paperwork wise with the state and as such. Volunteers, I'd like to thank everybody, that's been working on First Street, Second Street, helping us get things cleaned up. Things were looking pretty shabby less than a month ago, with 3 guys in Public Works, guys on vacation. It's been very hard, for them to keep up on that stuff. One of them, Ed, he's here. He's been working for us for the last 3 years, doing a ton of work. We really appreciate you. And as well as everybody else that's been helping us out. So that's been great. Jeff is on vacation from Public Works, so I don't think he had really anything. Oh, yes, I want to touch on the Highland Park. That project is really starting to come together. It's starting to look great. Linda, I think, there she is. She's been doing a wonderful job, got us a lot of grant funding for that. A lot of the equipment is starting to arrive. The trails were paved, as well as the basketball court and the new pickleball court. And that has been painted and striped. So we're making a lot of progress. So we're very excited about that. And we thank everybody for their help. That's all I got.
All right. And Jeff's not here. City Attorney Steve Johnson.
I have no report.
Finance Director Julie Pope.
First, I want to say our new website is up and running, so if you get a chance, go to cosmopoliswa.gov and take a look. We have found a couple little snafus in there, but they are being fixed. So if you guys find anything, please contact me so we can get it taken care of. But it looks really nice. It much improved. Also, to touch on the Public Works and the Finance Committee meetings that we've done, one of the things we discussed was bulk water sales. And what that is people like out at the North River, they run low on water and they have tanks, so they'll come to the city and we'll sell them water. Or we have landscapers who come in and they're hydro seeding or something like that. Again, and we'll sell them the water. So we've been working on new rates for that. Currently, we've been charging them the same rates that what our citizens pay for the consumption portion, which really isn't fair to our citizens. So we're working on a service charge and a higher consumption rate, and then how we want to do that with residential versus commercial. We're not quite there where we want to be on the rates, but hopefully by the next council meeting that will be presented to the city council regarding that. We also talked about overtime and or comp time for the Public Works guys with 3 guys. They're being pulled, 25 different directions. So we're going to temporarily increase their comp time limits to 160 hours. Once we hire another employee for them, it will be dropped down to 120, and we'll give them 6 months to bring those numbers down. Because I don't want to just say, okay, now you've got an employee. Guess what? You got to use it or I'm cashing y'all out at one shot. So it would just be a temporary increase. The other thing we did talk about was the EMS and sewer fees for small businesses. And we compared Aberdeen's, Hope Williams, and then ours, and just briefly discussed that topic. And we touched on the RFA and some of the fees related to that and how it affects the city's finances. And also going back to the fire department, we got Nick and another person on board there. And when signing them up, I realized that when it comes to their physicals to sign on, that the Board of Volunteer Firefighters actually reimburses us $100 for each physical. And currently that's what we pay is $100 for their physicals. So that was a nice little bonus to help us get our fire department going again. So that's all I got for right now.
Perfect, thank you. Deputy Chief Lyman.
Mayor, council, we did see an increase in calls for service in this last month. A large quantity of drug affected persons type calls and mental health calls. We've been working with some of the property management companies to help us with that, as well as using the Aberdeen, Hope and Cosmopolis navigator position to try to get services to those that need it, and try to curb some of the calls for service involving them. We a while back participated in a program to get Narcan for our officers to carry. In the last month, we've administered 2 times and saved 2 different lives from fentanyl overdoses, long before our firefighters were able to show up. It's because we're usually out there patrolling while they're in their lazy boys, but. No, we did see an increase. We had over 220 calls for service in the last 30 days, which is more than we usually have. I don't know if it's summer or just some of the problems we've been having. We also had a couple injury collisions. We usually have a very low collision rate in Kazi. But this last month, we've had a few injury collisions. It's not me, I promise. The other thing I wanted to touch base with is one of our officers that's signed a detective position, Ryan Mescal, Detective Mescal. And he is part of a grant funded position that we have that is doing criminal investigation through an interagency agreement, involves Seattle Police Department and the Washington State Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. He got a case assigned to him that he ended up connecting some different reports from both California and Idaho that all led here to the south side of our community, and was able to not only get the evidence through a grant donated computer that we have to forensically go through and get the evidence, but investigated that case, located a suspect, interviewed the suspect, got a confession, and the suspects did a plea of 84 months for a first offense, going to prison. So I'm proud of him in that work. That's God's work there as far as I'm concerned, for the type of crime that he was investigating. So kudos to him for that. That's it.
And just a quick note, I mean, talking about the Narcan, I just had the opportunity to talk to people from Harbor Crest today, and it's International Overdose Awareness Day coming up at the August 31st. It's terrible that has to even be a day that's recognized, but it's the need is every day. So I had a long conversation with them and the need for more.
Well, that program did end, as far as I'm aware, but we have a few of them left, but unfortunately, we're going through them.
Mhm.
So it's a thing, even in our good community.
Thank you. Moving on to my report. Now we'll keep it very brief. I had judgment. I had the opportunity to take part in a couple different events in the last week or so. First was the FEMA announcement. FEMA and emergency management from the state came in and officially announced $50 million for the North Shore levy, which is about half the cost, but then there's so much more money coming in from other places. That is going to be a boon to the entire region. And so I got to be there for that. And that's massive. I think City Administrator Shea from Holcomb had said that it's the biggest thing to ever happen to Aberdeen. And you can't really deny that on the total number that's coming in from FEMA and them. In addition, I had the opportunity yesterday, I want to say, More Right Group. They recently purchased a bunch of land. They're planning to put 90 tiny homes, purchase 17 homes, want to rehab them, make them more affordable housing, all near the Middle Swanson's former area, which is now the More Right Group. And they just opened a Recovery Cafe, and they're doing some amazing work out of that building. And so that's another just huge boon to the area and filling a lot of gaps that we have. So that is all I have. I can add more. But, moving on to new business, filling our seat. Item A is the interview candidates for the council appointment. So what I'd like to do, if the council's okay with it, I got a couple of questions that I'd just like to ask everyone that applied, very general, in your own words, and just then we'll go in and we'll discuss, and someone's going to be sitting on the council for at least portion of the meeting tonight. So we will, you just happen to be at the front right. You chose the front row. So we'll start with you. We're going to ask everybody the same questions. So 2 questions. 1, why did you choose to apply? And 2, what experience do you feel you could bring to the council? So if the council's okay with those questions.
Could they introduce themselves? as if-
Well,
I
yes.
don't know.
Yes, introduce yourself, and then why
Please.
did you apply and what experience can you bring to the council?
Good evening, you bet. You want to like to stand?
Yes, please.
Oh, you bet. Good evening, everybody. My name is Daryl. I'm a Cosmopolis resident. Been living here since about 2007. I noticed that on social media that there's a call for a open council position for a service. I've always enjoyed my time in Cosmopolis, and some things I like about Cosmopolis, it's a very, it's a joyful place to live, it's a joyful place to work. There's people with smiles. They've always taken care of the community. I noticed that wonderful cleanup along Second Avenue, you know, and everybody kind of rallies together. I do have an interest in public service. I'm currently a battalion chief with South Beach Regional Fire Authority, so I have a very basic understanding of city government and county government. So I do have been exposed to Robert's Rules of Orders and those type of things. I understand the importance of understanding financial aspects with public funds and making sure that transparency is very important. Excuse me, and being able to go, go through that process so that it's transparent for citizens and that type of thing. I know that it takes people to work together in the community to make it good. So ultimately, I've seen a need, and I'm stepping up and I'm offering myself to potentially fill that position. So I hope you choose me.
Thanks, Daryl.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Debbie, you're up. Why did you apply and what experience can you bring to the position?
Well, I'm applying because I've been on the council for 24 years. I know what the city needs and doesn't need. And I do a lot of walking around, so when things change, I inform the public of what the new changes are and everything. And I really enjoy being on the council, so that's why I'm here.
Mark, you're up. Already.
My name is Mark Coates. I've been a resident of Cosmopolis for 22 years now, and I've found out that this opening had come up. And I know that it's been a great place to live. I raised my son here. He's still here. And he may be raising his kids here. Very well. And I've been with Department of Corrections for 30 years. Well, it'll be 30 in September. And so I know a little bit about law enforcement. And also I was a volunteer firefighter for a while. And I've been on the planning commission since, I want to say 2007 or thereabouts. So I've learned a lot about the city through that. I just want to offer my services to be councilman.
Thanks, Mark. You're up, Ed.
Okay, I'm Ed Van Sickle, and I think this is my third time trying this. Why did I apply? Well, I applied because I think the council members have seen my activities around the city. I drive the city quite a bit and I observe what could use help that I could do. And I've offered to do that, and that's what I've done. What do I have to offer? My experience, I have an engineering experience. I've done construction, I've done inspection, I've done preliminary surveys, I've done did some design work. I've done a lot of course landscape work here. My main attribute, I think, is that I have the time and I look for things that need to be done that I can do. And I try to either do them myself or call them potential people that could do something to help the city.
Thanks, Ed. Great, yeah, all you. Floor is yours.
Ray Robinson, local resident for about a little over 7 years here in Cosmopolis. I love it here. Wouldn't want to live anyplace else right now. However, this is where I am, and this is an opportunity that came up. I've been attending some meetings and on Zoom and in person. I knew about this vacancy coming open, so got the application or got the information to put my letter of interest in. My experience, I lived in Raymond for over 20 years. I was on the planning commission and the city council there for the majority of those years. And I just feel like I have some experience and some background on all the financial things, fire department, police department, unions, working with those, all those kind of things. I was employed by the state of Washington 23 years. I was in the Air Force for 23 years, retired from both of those, and now this is something else that's going to present itself to me as a possibility. So I put my name out there and I'll go with whatever your choices are. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. You're up, Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda Springer. Know a lot of you here, and so I decided to run for this position because, like many of you, all of you, it was in Cosmos, your life, and wanting to make a difference. So, my education, my experience, it's all over the board. I have a lot. I've worked worked in education, the college, the schools. I've worked for the state as an investigator. So I've worked with a number of agencies, both with police and fire departments as an investigator. And so that cooperative, having that ability to work cooperatively with a number of agencies and a variety of people, I have that. Also, I have the tools in my training in psychology and human development. And also, the other part of that is also a lot of training in communication. I may not always agree, as Dylan can say, but you know, when we've had discussions, we get back to where we need to be because we're working for the good of the city. One of the things that I saw living here in Cosmopolis was that they were struggling. They really had a need. And with that, with Cosmo closing down, we're all closing down. And I live right across from Highland Park. And one of the things I saw was the park in really sad shape. And that's the other thing, through my experience, I've worked on community, improving as a community. When I lived in Hoquiam, I came from Hoquiam, I'm the hometown Hoquiam girl. I worked with the schools and the city and the council, doing family and other programs and writing grants over there to have events and opportunities for families. So one of the things when I came to this community, I would sit and I'd look out there and I thought, we need to do something different. And, you know, unfortunately, the city didn't have the resources to do that. So we formed a grassroots group where we took on this park and we would mow it during COVID and we would started cleaning the fence. And then I realized that we needed a lot more. So I took on the grant writing aspect, which I'm not going to blow my own home horn, but I'm going to. I'm really good at it. And we came up with 131,000, and the city is doing 30,000 in kind, and we probably have close to 30 or 40 with other donation in kind match. When that park is done, that's going to be about $180,000 project. And I have to tell you, and kudos to Darren and Jeff, because I couldn't do it without them. But this park is going to showcase what we can have here in Cosmopolis. I'm retired, but I have to tell you, since I started this project in November, I feel like I work probably 3 or 4 days a week. And Julie has been great to work with as a financial person. I'm going over things, reviewing where we're at. So I've had that communication. I served on the park committee, gosh, probably back in 2018 with Donna, working on the comprehensive park committee. Like the rest of you, there was a need in this community for people to get back where we were, volunteering and helping. And I have a good volunteer group, and I think I bring a lot of that to the table where I can bring people to this table and to this community to make a difference. And I think my grant writing experience or my connections in the community here in Grace Harbor as a whole would really be an asset, and I would be honored to serve on this.
Thank
And I
you.
want to thank you. That when I have heard, it's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for everything you've done. I mean, everyone just stand up and call me. But I'm honored to meet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody who applied. We are going to go into an executive session for 15 minutes, should be more than enough to kind of discuss the qualifications of an applicant candidate for appointment to elected office as per RCW 42.30.1101H. So we're gonna have to ask everybody to step outside for the next 15 minutes, but we will return at what is that, 8:11? So we will be back at 8:11 unless we will let you know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
We will be extending the executive session until 8:16.
Right, and that's one of the things we're working with Nick and looking forward to the whole set of.
What it feels like.
I know. You relegated to doorman now. You're up and going.
I do what is needed. It is 8:16 and we will call this meeting back to order. And we move on to item C under new business, to vote for new council members. So are there any nominations from the
Aye.
council?
I would like to nominate Ms. Robinson. Roberts, sorry.
Robinson,
I would like to nominate Daryl Brown.
okay. We've got two nominations, so we will start, first nomination, all in favor of Ray Robinson. All in favor of Daryl Brown.
Aye.
That is, two. That's all it takes. Congratulations, sir. If you come up to the front, we'll get the official, swearing in.
Well, I have to apologize because I didn't know I was supposed to be here until 20 minutes to 7 when I talked to you on the phone, and I've been up in Spanaway for the last 10 hours.
Well, you're here now, so, raise your right hand. I, Ray Robinson,
I, Ray Robinson,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
the Constitution and the laws of the state of Washington,
and the ordinances of the city of Cosmopolis,
the ordinances of the city of Cosmopolis.
and that I will faithfully and impartially
I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge
perform and discharge
the duties of the office of council member
the duties of office council member
of the city of
of
Cosmopolis
the city of Cosmopolis
according to law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and the best of my abilities.
Your seat will be over there, but you feel free to steal Miles for now, and we'll get one of these officials. Thank you. And thank you, everybody who put their names in. I can't speak for the council, but I feel like I can speak for the council that it was not an easy decision, and everybody brings all sorts of aspects and different things. And so anybody who is interested and wants to help the city, provide the city with anything, I mean, you all kind of have your own little handles and already assisting the city in ways, but we would be more than likely and more than happy to find a place for you if you'd like to be more involved. And in the future, you never know, but we would love to keep you involved with the city because of your interest. So thank you again for everybody who applied. Item D on the agenda that was added to the amended agenda this morning, or this afternoon, excuse me, regarding the Emergency Services Consulting International Fire Service Delivery Options Analysis. And we are joined this evening by Annie Seeger. And you can see her on the TV to discuss, as she is from ESCI, to discuss what this is and what it says. So Annie, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks so much. Can you all hear me okay? Great, so as Mayor Polly said, I'm with ESCI. I'm actually also, I have a firm here in Seattle called Seeger Consulting, so I'm a local consultant with the ESCI team. We were asked by Julie Pope, and I think under the direction of Darren Rames, the city administrator, to come up with a scope of work for evaluating the city's options for delivering fire services to your residents. And so we put together, a little approach how we might tackle this task. We think that there's 4 key service delivery options to evaluate. Of course, a standalone municipal fire department, the contract for fire and EMS services, which is what you're under currently with the city of Aberdeen. And then, of course, the potential option of the establishment of the Central Grays Harbor Regional Fire Authority. We've added to our scope of work, also evaluating the formation of a municipal fire department, which is district, which is another option that the city has available to it. I really think of these projects as trying to help cities figure out how they can provide residents with the services they need and desire at a price they can afford and are willing to pay. And so ultimately, that's what this is about, is evaluating these 4 options to understand them, not only based on their impacts to the city and services, but also on the impacts to residents and the potential tax burden. In evaluating that, we'll also look at things like governance, representation, administration, and policy, personnel, and community preferences to fully evaluate these alternatives. We will not, well, we might make a recommendation about what makes the most financial sense. This scope of work does not include like any public outreach at this point. So if you were to find that there were some financially favorable options, you might choose to to continue through this process with some sort of public process. I can see from your meeting so far that you have a very engaged community, which is wonderful to see. And so a public hearing or something might make sense if you found that you had multiple options. I will briefly get into the scope of work, but first I just want to touch a little bit on Captains Miller and Golding's presentation earlier about the RFA. I think they made some comments about, how, this is a very quick decision that they need for the RFA, and that, really this contract is just about evaluating the financial impacts, and you don't necessarily need that. I am not going to disagree with them, but what I will say is that I think the Central Grays Harbor Regional Fire Authority has gone to the ballot twice, and it has failed twice. And so I think there is a risk that if they rush it to the ballot again, it may fail again. And what I didn't hear from their presentation this evening is a pathway forward if it doesn't succeed. I personally think that consolidation of services often makes a lot of sense, especially for things like public safety. So I think a regional fire authority is potentially a great option, but I would want the city of Cosmopolis to be involved in the decision-making around the tax burden that would represent for residents and the services they would receive as part of that partnership. And I wouldn't want the city to be an afterthought in that process. So totally acknowledge that there's a need and desire to get that on the ballot as quickly as possible. But I would also say if you're really interested in participating in that process, you may ask them to put the brakes on and consider putting it on a different ballot rather than November 2022. So I just briefly want to say that. I will touch quickly on the scope of work. This is a fairly quick project. It involves just a few key things. We would do a project initiation and kickoff with the city. We would want to make sure that we're evaluating the right things. We have the data that we need, and that we have a shared definition of what project success would look like. We would then do a situation assessment, which would include a baseline financial analysis and just sort of an operational analysis about the services that have been historically delivered by City of Cosmopolis and what might be available under the other options. And then we would do, the key part of this work, which is the service delivery analysis, where we would evaluate the 4 options. That would include looking at them separately and then comparing them to one another. And I think there's important reasons to both look at the merits of each individually and then also to compare them. When we compare things, we want to compare both the financial aspect and the service aspect, because what we wouldn't want to do is put the city in a position where, yes, they have the most financially favorable option, but they're not delivering the level of service that residents expect and are willing to pay for. So we would evaluate both those things together. Again, we would compare all 4 options. And then finally, we would deliver a report that provides that comparison and would really guide policymakers in their decision-making around that. That decision-making, like I said, may involve not only, the near-term decision of something like, participating in the West Central RFA or West Grays Harbor RFA, or, for in the short term doing a contract, but it would also provide the decision-making so that you could make decisions over a longer term. So if you were to participate in the Central Grays Harbor RFA, you would have also a pathway if that did not pass, which I do think it's important to really be thoughtful of that risk. Passage of an RFA, when it has a funding tool associated, requires a supermajority of 60%. And in the most recent election that was held for both cities of Aberdeen and Hoquiam, it passed, or it failed. It only got approximately 53% of the vote in both communities. So they're a fair margin away from passage. Certainly, they described some of the ways that they're going to try to close that gap. But again, I wouldn't want the city of Cosmopolis to feel like you have to rush into making that decision by September 7th. If you don't want to, it feels like a very high pressure thing. The last thing I'll say before I answer any questions that you might have is that, we expect to refine the scope of work together. So if this is a contract that you want to pursue, by no means do we need to sign the memo version that's been provided at this point. We certainly could continue to advance it together, add, cut, remove, delete, schedule, whatever it needs to happen to make sure it really truly meets your city's needs. So those are my quick comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I guess the first comment, realistically, what kind of timeline would a study like this look at? I mean, as it's presented right now, very rough timeline.
Sure. So a lot, when I think about schedule for these sorts of tasks, the biggest differentiator in schedule is the amount of review time and vetting that's needed by city staff and council members. In a normal process where we have, maybe a review with the city, a workshop with city staff, and then one review meeting with council, like of an interim deliverable or the initial results, and then a final presentation with council, I would think that this would be complete, like fully done sometime in October. What I would say is that because you have this September 7th date that has some urgency behind it, it may be possible to sort of configure the scheduling so that we could provide some initial analysis of the RFA option early on in the process, and then provide final results, in that September, October window. I think, if time were not an issue, what I would say is this is probably about a 12-week project. But I think if the city is able to provide data in a timely manner and the review process is, succinct, then it could be done in as little as about 8 weeks.
We had talked, this process was done in Hoquiam and had already been done for the Central Grace Harbor Regional Fire Authority. Any other municipalities that you've kind of worked with that, we might know just kind of as a reference?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I have to say, so I'm a partner with ESCI. The way ESCI works is that they have partners across the country that do this work. I actually was not directly involved in the Hoquiam and Aberdeen study. But what I bring to this is that I'm a Seattle consultant that was previously at a large Seattle consulting firm. And so I've done this for a number of other communities. I've looked at cooperative services, not only for public safety, but also for other public services like parks, libraries, public transit, et cetera. A couple of projects that I've worked on that are fire specific were for the newly formed Renton RFA, which was formed, I think, in 2019. So that work happened in about that 2018-19 window. I also worked for the South Snohomish County Fire District, which is now the South Snohomish County Regional Fire Authority. So those are a couple examples. I've recently been working, like in more recent times, I've actually been working on a public safety needs assessment for the city of Airway Heights, which is by Spokane. And I'm working on comprehensive plans for a number of other cities throughout Washington right now.
You guys didn't do this, did you?
We did that term, but maybe not very great.
Okay. Council, what's questions?
Are we gonna get financial numbers in this final report?
Speak up a little bit louder, it's hard to hear.
Are we gonna get financial numbers in this final report?
Would we, what kind of financial numbers would we have in the final report if we move forward?
Sure. So I think we would compare three key things. We would compare the revenues that would be available for each of the options, the cost structure that would be there for each of the options. And again, that would be at a planning level estimate because there'd be decisions for you to make about how you would form and what services you would provide for something like a standalone municipal fire department, or, your contract number is something that I can only predict. I can't, actually give you what the city of Aberdeen would ask you to continue to pay if you were not to join the RFA. And then lastly, we would also look at tax burden. So we'd look at revenue from the perspective of the city, expenditures from the perspective of the city, but then we'd also want to think about that from the perspective of what does it cost our residents and what is the variation in tax burden across those residents. One thing that I would say is that I think Cosmopolis is one of those cities that's in a unique position in the sense that you do have a larger daytime population than residential population because of the tourism here. And so one thing that we could think about is whether there's opportunities to support some of these needed fire and EMS services based on that tourism, because some of those tourists are the beneficiaries of those services. Not just that, fire and EMS serve residents, they also serve the people who are coming to Cosmopolis for beaches and summertime tourism.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, Chief.
Yes,
Corey had mentioned the September 8th date. How hard is that?
Well, I remember, I think when one of our meetings, our hope was to go up to the February 2023 ballot, which you need to, Steve, you have to file for that 45 or 60 days in advance.
December 10th-ish.
December 10th-ish. And the concern was, okay, what if at the time when we decided that, I talked about it,
Mhm.
we didn't realize you guys had 2 meetings a month. It was only, we thought you had still at 1. Because you changed to your budget cycle, you have 2 meetings a month. And then we thought, well, what happens if you don't have a forum or a quorum? You can't do it in November because you didn't have a quorum, so now you have to bounce back to October. And then if, depending on your cycle of meetings, if you approve it, then Aberdeen and Hope can still approve it, has to approve it also, so. September 7th or 8th, I don't think that's like a hard set date.
No.
There's some playtime in there. We were trying to anticipate
Yeah.
any problems and trying to say, well, if we move it here, that way if something happens, we've got some catch up to do.
Realistically, I mean, if we had a decision a week ago, that would have been awesome,
Right.
but I mean, we've got some time.
I think we talked about maybe even your first November meeting would be in that timeframe still.
Yeah, that would need to be probably about the last that we would,
That was, yeah,
yeah.
we were just trying to put some playtime or
Yeah, because
Flexibility in there in
city
case
has to
something-
pass an ordinance.
Yeah, and if we go into October. And then we, for whatever reason, say, you know what, maybe another time. That gives a month and a half for the entire plan to be adjusted
To be
again, to go
adjusted.
back to 2. So there is a little playtime, but. The kind of the shortened 8 weeks is way better than 12 weeks, and 3 weeks is even better, but I just wanted to, thank you.
Yeah.
So we do have some time, if we want to do that, and then like, Annie had said, if there was, start off with RFA report to get an idea on that ahead of time, that's an option.
And that was just the date that the committee shot for as a goal.
Yeah,
Was, I think there's another special election you could do in April. I'm
Yeah.
looking at Steve here.
Mhm.
So those obviously can be moved out, but that's a committee decision. That's not a me decision.
yeah. So, questions for Annie from E ESCI? I'm looking at the computers and thank you, Annie, for joining us and answering those questions.
Much. Have a good one.
And we will be in touch one way or the other.
Great. Thanks so much.
After hearing that, I guess what is does the council have any pleasure?
That also be an official council meeting.
It'll be a special meeting.
Okay.
So action can be
I would
taken.
To table it until then.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to table the discussion on the City of Cosmopolis Fire Service Delivery Options Analysis from ESCI until our special meeting scheduled on September 7th.
Is that gonna be at 7 or 6?
7th. Well,
I would go
okay.
6 because
yeah, because we'll do the works. So we'll change that to 6. So. All right, and we will bring it up there again. Oh, motion to table on the floor. Any discussion?
In the meantime, can we get something maybe down to the city or the post office, try to get something out to, well, we've got what, 2 weeks?
To announce the special meeting.
Yeah, and what it's about.
We'll
for the
send it to the
citizen.
radio stations. I'll get it down at the post office. I'll email the Daily World. I'll get it on Facebook. We'll put signs up here at City Hall, the door and the drive-through. And try to get the word out
And by
as
all
much as
means,
possible.
all the public that's here tonight, spread the word. So the more the better.
Yeah, any input from the public and any new voices. Is great, just in case there's something we're not thinking of.
Question, do we want to hold out the fire hall versus here? For the extra room?
Seems appropriate too. Yeah. Yes, we will do that just for space, because just for this meeting, we've got a packed house, so. So that is coming up again, September 7th, 6 p.m. Here at the city complex at the fire station. Special meeting and workshop regarding RFA and ESCI. And I sent an event calendar to everybody at least on the council and staff on that as well, so. That is it, so we will go to council comments. Time to shine, sir.
What can I say?
Anything that you would like
Keep it short.
within.
I'll be around. I'm still trying to decipher this. No, I really, I just appreciate the support and look forward to serving on the city council, and I'm available, and we'll just go from there.
Thanks, Jay.
We
Candace?
welcome you.
Yeah, I'm just happy to hear from you. Happy to see you. Happy to see everybody.
You'll see what this council's about. Yeah.
Donna.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And also, the finance director, I did see that we sold all of our surplus stuff. What was the grand total of?
The 3 chargers and the ambulance was over $8,000, and then, gosh, what was the
Fire truck.
Fire truck was. Having a brain cramp.
2,800?
Yeah, I think it was in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or 2,800, I think.
So we
Thank
did
you.
much better on the chargers when I spoke with Scott at Gov Deals. He anticipated we'd be lucky to get $500 a piece for them, so. To get, close to $2,000 for all of them, or each one individually was. Very good.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
I know I've been a pain in your ass about it, so appreciate it. I mean, but
Uh-huh.
I said what I said. Thank you. And that goes to the equipment reserve fund, right?
Yeah, the fire truck and the ambulance will go into the fire equipment fund.
That's right.
The chargers will go into equipment reserve.
Thank you. That's all.
I used to get them taken care of.
Public comment period. Public is able to comment on anything they'd like to talk to the city. We do ask that you keep it 3 minutes or so, just to make sure there's time, but the floor is open. You're up.
Stephen Robinson, I hear there's going to be speed limit signs on Stanford. I'm excited. Someone stopped by the other day and told Ray.
You ought to take that up with your councilman.
And he is available 24/7. If you can't get him, just call me and I'll tell you.
Yes, we are pretty. Ed, your hand's up.
Okay, I have 2 concerns. Item 1, vegetation overgrowth in the public sidewalk on E Street from property at 111 E Street. It's in violation of ordinance 12.04.050, obstructing sidewalks. Owners shall keep the adjacent sidewalk free and clearing of obstruction, organic or inorganic shrubs, vehicles, etc., or full width to a height of 10 feet. I'm requesting the mayor and the city council proceed according to ordinance 7.16.020 abatement procedure, since the owner has not complied with ordinance 7.16.010 removal of vegetation. Item 2 is very similar, except it pertains to First Street and H Street. 832 First Street. And in addition to item.
Can you say that? Can you say that address again? Sorry.
The address, 832 First Street. And in addition to the violation of the first item, the second item, there's a public safety problem, obstruction of the street light on the sidewalk. Because of vegetation, the sidewalk's not illuminated. If the city proceeds to self-remove this vegetation, I will volunteer to prune the vegetation in compliance with ordinance 7.16.010 and 12.04.050 with city equipment and dump site.
Thank you. We will look at both. Top of my
He
head.
has the details on that. I gave her a copy.
Oh, perfect. I was gonna say, the address is off the top of my head, not specific, but I'll drive by him tonight and look at him again tomorrow. So, thanks, Ed. Floor is yours.
In this charge on commercial property that I had a meeting. I called today to find out, and Darren told me that since August first, no one's gotten back to me.
That's a speed of
Well,
government.
no,
thing.
like I said today, both Public Works and the public or the Finance Subcommittee has voted at this point not to do anything without a rate study. And to do a rate study is very expensive at this point. It's something we want to do for all of our fees. The other question you had today, I did find out that was on the two sewers. If one of them, you could be charged one because one of them was only gray water. Well, unfortunately, we are charged from Hope or Aberdeen per gallon, not if it's a full system or not. So they did vote to have that remain as is.
Okay, so. Was there anything, I know Jeff was gonna find out if other. On our property over there. It's, we pay $75 for EMS, but Dawn pays her own. Our other ones, nobody's in the building, but we pay 25 for each building. I was just asking if we can pay 25 for. Both buildings for our property, our account, for one property.
And right now, the way the ordinance is drafted, it's per utility account. So that would have to be something that the council would have to look at. Revising the way it's charged. Not by. Per account, or it could be per property, but that would,
But it's per property, so it's one property.
yes, but we have some accounts or some properties that have multiple accounts on them. And so. To figure out, it costs so much to run the EMS program right now. So it was broke down so much per residential, commercial, or like Cosmo, who was our largest user. To revise that, it would take, a study to recalculate all those fees. And it's
What is that?
it'd basically be hiring a consultant to go through and do that.
For just the commercial properties?
No, we'd have to do all of them, because if we cut back the commercial properties, then it's gonna increase the residential.
I don't wanna cut them back. For our property instead of $50.
Well, it's the same, so it's spread out right now under so many units, so if you take a unit A, then. I mean, Mark or whatever might pay whatever much more to cover that, so until we get the rate study. Which is still, it's still a plan, it's just all it takes is money and time, so.
It would be something we would have to budget and probably start right after the first year if the funds are available.
Yeah,
Well, we're anticipating some very large increases coming from Aberdeen again this next year.
But
So-
not for EMS, for EMS.
Well, EMS, I don't know. But also that, when you look at utility accounts, water, sewers, stormwater, that also affects your utility taxes. It affects your EMS tax. So they all compound. So you've got to look at the whole breakdown of that and try to get the best possible price. And so for Julie and I to do that, it's not as easy as it seems. We could come up with a number, but we need to have somebody, a firm that's what they specialize in. They just did this for Aberdeen and I believe Hochman as well. And so we need to take into account what Aberdeen's rates are and what they've got projected out for the next 5 to 10 years and incorporate that into ours. So we're meshing together. Otherwise, what we do is for naught, because we could give you some figures that could then change next year or the following. And so we want to be able to be as transparent as possible and give you the best potential price and numbers going forward that you can rely upon. So we'll get there. It's not going to happen as fast as we would like, unfortunately. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's not a dead issue. No, it's not a dead issue.
Any other comments from the public? Hearing none. Thank you, everyone, and we will call the meeting adjourned.